Now we also want to avoid unnecessary complexity and circumlocution. So circumlocution is talking around the subject. It's being not direct. So not directly going to the heart of the matter, but taking a lot of words to say something that could be said in a few words. So let's look at a couple of examples and revisions to make these sentences more direct and more concise. There have been recent calls for such an integrative approach to include both deterministic and random components in order to enhance its predictive ability. So there's quite a bit in here that we could cut out. What's the point of saying there have been recent calls for such an? Let's just get directly to the integrative approach. Instead of saying people are calling for it to include, let's just say that such an approach could include. So my suggested revision says an integrative approach could include both deterministic and random components to enhance its predictive ability. And I also took out in order. Whenever you say in order to something, most of the time you can take out in order. The second example says, furthermore, to appreciate the quantitative variance in relative abundances of key proteins possessing diverse bioactivity, more specifically, differences between melittin and apamin and between icarapin and allergen were tested as a function of the flowering season and behavioral response, respectively. So I feel like this sentence has more information than is necessary. So these specific proteins that they're comparing, this melittin and apamin and icarapin and allergen, those are going to be shown in the figures or tables. Unless you're pointing out specific differences between them in the results sentence, there's no reason to list them here. So that is circumlocution. Also, the sentence is unnecessarily complex. And so I would suggest simplifying it to this sentence below. Relative abundances of key proteins were measured over the flowering season and by categories of behaviors. So they've got these abstract terms as a function of the flowering season, as a function of behavioral response. So why don't we just make it more direct and say they were measured over the flowering season and by categories of behaviors. So we've made it more concrete, and the sentence is a lot shorter than the original. Another example is, while there are a large body of reports suggesting an association between root mass or root distribution at deeper soil layers and drought tolerance in various crop species, there are also a number of reports on root growth angles that influence the root distribution in deeper soil layers, an important attribute in the capture of adequate water under water stress situation. Okay, so that is a 60-word sentence. So I've underlined some of the phrases that I feel like are unnecessary. And that last part that's in parentheses, I feel like that's a completely separate idea that should be put into another sentence. And so I would suggest taking that out entirely. But how can we rework the first part of this sentence? Instead of saying there are a large body of reports, let's just say several reports. And instead of saying suggesting an association between, I would say suggest that X and Y. And then I change association to associated with. The phrase in various crop species I feel like is not necessary for this sentence because we're already talking about that there are multiple reports. So I think we could just remove that phrase entirely. And then the phrase a number of reports on, well, let's just change that to other reports. And so the revised sentence would still be pretty long. It would still have 33 words, but that's a cut of about half. And so let me read you the revised version. Several reports suggest that root mass or root distribution at deeper soil layers is associated with drought tolerance, and other reports suggest that root growth angles influence root distribution in deeper soil layers. So I do think I've captured all of the same content and information that's in that first sentence, and I've done it in about half as many words. Although, keep in mind, there will be another sentence added to this paragraph for that last phrase.